like 9 songs are not it. What the hell? We're like, how do you make a song about a person that's so happy that nothing can bring them down? And I sarcastically answered it and put music to it. And that sarcasm became the song.
So excited to be able to sit here and have a conversation with you, stretch out into this remarkable achievement, this film, piece by piece. So beautiful, true collaboration.
Absolutely.
You hope for that every time that you get into a room with an artist, that it will feel like a collaboration. And I'm sure some take longer and harder work to get there than others. But this just felt like you guys, through creativity and openness, landed into this place where you needed each other to do this.
The thing that was different than, say, a normal documentary is, normally somebody shares their story with you and then you figure out how to tell it, which I did. But then I showed it back to Pharrell, and then he started writing songs based on my view of his story. And then it became this kind of circular conversation creatively then about, the entire film. So it did become collaborative in a way that it normally isn't.
P, why do a documentary now at this point in your life?
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my agent was so persistent. Yeah. So persistent. And but then he said the magic words that just made me look at the opportunity way differently, which was you can do it whatever way you want it.
Yeah. It's a creative exercise, not a reflective exercise.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that was brilliantly put, by the way, just now. It's creative, not as reflective. And then it was like, okay, well, if we do that, we had a discussion about Morgan, who I always thought was just great at what it is that he does. And then he had just done Mr. Rogers, the Won't You Be My Neighbor? And I was like, man, if that guy tells my story, it'll be insane. And that was from an audio perspective and the storytelling perspective. But if we could just clad it with Lego, the whole thing, I could be...
Even now, it sounds so wildly creative and out of the box. Even though I've watched it and I know it works when you said it like that, my instinct was to go, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people said that.
Yeah. Because, imagine, how do you think does it even sound possible that you could ever be black and tan and wake up in a Lego land? No. But yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Morgan said yes. Lego said yes. Focus Pictures said yes. Universal and Donna Langley said yes. And, this movie is the sum of a lot of yeses, in a world where there's predominant no's. And so we worked on building the impossible. That's where we are right now. Like, I can't even really put it into words. It's not what I would have wanted to do, like a story on myself, no, but like make a Lego film.
Well, there's a couple of things wrapped up in this, exactly. And I think that often we get ahead of the no's and we say them out to ourselves. And we don't actually ask the question because we're like, it's too crazy, I'm going to get no. And we're told as kids, really young, by most parents with the best of intentions, that no is a word that we have to get used to because it's going to keep us on the right side of the road and keep us out of trouble, right?
For sure.
But it's one of those words. You need no, for sure. You need it. You need boundaries. But at the same time, when it comes to exploration, adventure, creativity, it's not a word, I think, that carries much weight, yet we still apply it in a lot of ways. And I think what's beautiful about this is you just ask the question, can we? And you had a partner who was like, let's find out. I think a lot of people, not to put us in a hierarchy, probably wouldn't have even asked the question. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, it was the thing that got me most excited, right away, that this idea of trying something that I didn't even know what it was going to mean. I didn't know if it was going to work in the beginning. I just thought this is a really interesting journey to go on. And each step we took, the world was telling us yes. I think this is going to work. And we kept playing with it and kept getting better and better. But I've come to see that the film itself is representative of how Pharrell thinks, which is magical thinking.
Magical thinking.
Which is, if everybody's going right, I'm going to go left. And we may fail, but I'm more interested in what happens, good or bad, if we go this way.
What I've always loved about your magical thinking, though, P, is that it's not. Some people are contrary just by design, and I never felt that you were being contrary. I felt like you were like, it's been done. It's been done. So if it's been done, like, let's do something new. And some people are like, oh, you go left, I'll go right. It's almost like a personality trait. For you, I felt like it was always something much broader than that. This untamed curiosity that you seem to have always had based on the story that's told in Piece by Piece. Even from a young age, you would see things different.
Yeah. But can't say that I really had the confidence to really go after things at times. I think I just ended up doing them because it was second nature and it felt like it was the right thing to do. But I was never really chasing anything because I didn't know that there was a there. Or I just knew I liked the process. There denotes a destination, a point. I didn't know if it was a there. I just knew I loved doing it. You know, Chad and I both, as kids, we loved making music. We loved the process. We didn't know what was going to result.
But you had an ambition that subconsciously or consciously was telling you that just doing, because most people make music at home. They don't jump on desks and say, "Hey, man, I'm going to change your life, and I'm going to change the world." And so something was driving you.
I jumped on Chris Lighty's desk. It was Chris Lighty. I mean, in the movie, it's Steve Stout voicing but that was Chris. That was Chris Lighty.
But because that's a real story. So tell him what happened when you met with Chris at that time.
I mean, he was on the phone, and I was performing, and then when he was on the phone, he answered the phone call while I was performing. I just jumped on the desk. I was like, "Oh, okay, fine."
When one irresistible force meets another, right? Great things happen, right?
Yeah.
Right. Let me see if this gets this guy out of my office. I'm gonna take the call. It was probably a courier. Probably wasn't even a call he needed to take. That's such a swerve.
Yeah, it was very real though.
I mean, did you ever get a chance, I'm sure you did, to laugh about that? Because obviously when Chris was alive and you were already successful, there must have been a moment when you were at a function or whatever and you recognized that moment.
I think I don't even know if I even remembered it when we started, doing things for Chris. I mean, we did Grimy and What It Is Right Now for Busta. 2 different sessions the same night. Chris flew them all down to get those songs. He was great, man.
You were doing songs.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
To your point about no's, one thing we get into in the film that people tend to forget is that what you were doing in the beginning, the beats you were making with Chad were so unorthodox that there were years of no's before they really connected.
Yeah.
That people tend to skip over.
Yeah.
But those are the important years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's a moment where it makes sense for the beat to come to surface and get used.
Well, it's like they say, you can't design when it's going to happen. You just have to be ready when it does.
Yeah.
And it was clear that you were, because as I said, I was in the UK at the time, and the sound was intoxicating, and immediately that we were all completely hooked in what you were making as Neptunes.
Yeah.
But I think as music fans, even we weren't expecting the speed and the dominance at which, I know it's a strong word, dominance, but I think I can use it in this regard. I mean, as far as the amount of hits you had on radio at one point or another, there were a couple of years where it was dominant. The question is, for someone who'd wanted that for so long, maybe not knowing what it was, but had a driving ambition to get your music in front of as many people as possible, what did that do to your sort of ambition? Because it felt like what was driving you up to that point was the no's. And so how did Yes feel when they started to come in really fast?
I never got super used to it, but I overcompensated with cockiness and arrogance.
Right.
And in the same way that you can confuse loving the process of what you do and the success that comes from it as the same thing, you can also get confused in hearing the yeses and feeling like you need to overcompensate by saying, yeah, that's right, and being cocky about it.
Yeah, it affects your identity.
When you don't really feel that way. And so, it's just that term, it's very important, self-awareness. You got to be aware. And a lot of times, things are happening so fast, you're not really aware. Sometimes I have a delayed response. I'm a late bloomer. Sometimes I have delayed responses to things. And, you just got to know yourself, know thyself. And when you do, you're able to harness these moments when they catch you off guard. And when you're blindsided, you're able to harness it and handle the situation and harness the situation better. That's where I am now. I love music. I love making music. I still do. I just did a record for The Weeknd and Playboy Cardi.
I love that record.
Yeah. Timeless.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
it starts out in quite a documentary style fashion with some real BTS that probably will or will not make the cut depending on how confident you are, and it's what it does. It does all things. Introduces you as a family man, trying to figure out how I'm going to make this work with everything else going on in my life, including my kid, who's only about 2, so he's got balance issues, right? So I'm going to pick him up. Are you okay? And very quickly you're like, okay, this is going to be a documentary in Lego. I wasn't expecting was that it stopped being a documentary pretty quickly, and it started being a real kind of coming of age film, a film that could have easily been fictionalized in a strange way. I was inspired by it in the same way I was inspired by storytelling that isn't necessarily set in real life. And I wonder how that feels from inside that experience. I'm sure you feel something akin to that because you didn't want to make a traditional documentary. How it feels to be looking back on your life, but it's being presented in a way like it's just a brilliant rags to riches, climb to the top story.
I think you just so wonderfully spoken to the brilliance of this man's storytelling. He allowed all of his interviews to sort of tell him what the film was going to be. Like you said, we started like saying, okay, it's going to be an animated doc. And we didn't tell anybody it was going to be Lego. We just said animated doc. And people gave their purest and rawest, feelings about, working with me and having experiences with me. And I think they were even warmer in ways than they wouldn't have been if they would have known it had been Lego. Because, you think, okay, well, I don't want to say this or I want to say that. And now this is going to be my posture and I'm going to, they start trying to direct, by just picking the stories they're going to tell. But here it was just like pure. And I feel like he really listened to everything that he got, what he amassed, and he let that direct him in the direction. That and like the Lego allowing us to vividly illustrate and depict what the story was saying gave this cinematic liberty and these extra steroids that like a regular documentary would be incredibly limited.
It's true. You expanded the framework considerably.
Yeah.
Even just the way you presented the concept of a beat being a box.
Yeah.
And the shape can change all times, and the colors and the way that synesthesia showed up in the film, which was just electrifying. For you as a documentary maker who's told these stories, each of them unique over the course of your life, but to be able to move in a space so visually exciting and to elaborate in ways you can't, as Pharrell rightly put, one-on-one.
It was so liberating. And it's funny because I think Pharrell has said that part of his idea to do it in Lego was to almost keep a layer between his naked self. You say having to see your face, in a normal documentary would have felt hard for him to watch.
That's a good point. You wouldn't have probably kept that scene with the family in if it was actually shot in reality through a camera.
No way.
Right.
No way. Great point.
But
Zane's really great at what he does.
He is.
Take it.
But I will also say, too, it's like looking in a mirror. It's like looking in a recorded mirror.
Yeah.
The point is, that Lego, even though it seems to maybe be a buffer between you and the real world, I actually felt like it allowed me to get in his head.
I know him way better
in a way
now.
that I couldn't have in a normal documentary.
Yeah.
I could see what he was seeing in his mind's eye, which you can't show in a normal documentary.
Yeah.
Like that was incredibly liberating for me. You don't get to play with those kinds of tools, and just being able to explore. And we kind of came up with this idea that there is this kind of documentary conceit, but once the music comes in, all the rules disappear. It becomes a fantasia. Like anything can happen. And we're in outer space and we're underwater and all these different things, because all those big emotional things that happen when you listen to music, we wanted to go on that ride with Pharrell.
There's a moment in the film, in the arc, about 2/3 of the way through, where a lot of the symbolism starts to recur in a very moving way. The idea of water, this big fish, Poseidon, this idea of all of these sort of icons and inspiration points sort of searching for you or wanting you to see them again because you were kind of had lost your way a little bit and were uninspired, is what the film tells me. You were going through an uninspired phase of your life where the creativity wasn't
So many
flowing.
of them, by the way.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because what happens is like you get inspired by something and then you just like drain it dry. And then it's like, okay, now what? It's a lot of that. But man, that's the journey. It's like fishing. You know?
You're just in the wrong patch of water.
That's it. That's it. Just stay on the boat. Stay on the boat. Keep your rod well calibrated. You know? Keep your bait. Keep your hooks. Pun intended. You know, be kind to everyone that's on your ship.
This is the Pharrell that I know now, having known the Pharrell before, that I love spending time with. And it's not that I didn't enjoy my time before, but you're right. There was a barrier between what I do and who you are before that should have existed. You're like, I'm a superstar and you're trying to get answers out of me and there has to be a protocol here. And now I feel we can go places and have real human conversations because that's what maturity does to you, right? It's what growth does to you, you know?
Sure.
But in that moment in time, I've definitely had my breakthroughs, the moments when I realize I can leave some stuff behind and it's better over this side of the table. And I wasn't quite sure really where something profound or what the profound, I know it happens all the time, but in the film in particular, was there a profound moment when you realized that you weren't that person anymore and you wanted to, and you were ready to be someone else, you were ready to grow, you were ready to embrace life in a different way, which is who you seem to have become now or who you've become now?
When I was about 40, because that's when, like, you know, Get Lucky, Blurred Lines, Happy, all of that was like the same year. So I was like, okay, well. And these were all songs that were more commissions than they were just like I woke up one day and decided I'm going to write about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
they were commissions.
That's interesting.
So when, you know, when it's a commission, then God, the universe, whatever you want to call
Taken
it,
out of your hands.
it's kind of like,
Yeah.
well, did you do this?
Yeah.
Was this your idea? Okay. You rose to the occasion 3 times, but you didn't wake up one morning and decided you was going to make a song about an emotion. You know, this was 9 songs that you were trying to like, you know, really complete this task for this film. And you kept hearing no, 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 no. And then it was only until you were out of ideas and you asked yourself a rhetorical question and you came back with a sarcastic answer. And that's what Happy was.
What was the question?
How do you make a song? I mean, like I've done it, like 9 songs are not it. What the hell? Like, how do you make a song about a person that's so happy that nothing can bring them down? And I sarcastically answered it and put music to it. And that sarcasm became the song. And that broke me.
Yeah.
That broke me.
Yeah.
That all of what I thought it was supposed to be didn't do that. And I had to learn that the universe, we're in the universe. The universe is a part of everything that we do. It's so crazy for us to think like as individuals, everything comes from us. Your ideas, everything that you get is coming from a library of existence. Nothing is new under the sun. In fact, the sun that you look up at every day is one of trillions upon trillions upon trillions of other stars. Nothing is new. Once you realize the insignificance of yourself, then you understand what your actual significance is. You know, people think, man, I wrote the book. It's like, no, you don't understand. You're lucky to be a comma in the sentence of a paragraph that happens to be in a page of a book called existence. You're lucky to be the dot on an I. Lucky. Or turn it upside down. The dot on the bottom of an exclamation. You are lucky to be that. But imagine the people that walk around thinking that they are the book. And when I realized that broke me. That broke me because the universe was like, nah, I'm going to do it 2 more times. I thought I was writing Get Lucky for somebody else. It was only until the song was mixed and they played it for me in Henson Studios that I realized that the robots wanted me on there. Yeah. I would have written it so differently for somebody else.
I remember speaking to them about that album. And when we spoke about you, I distinctly remember the answer was, and I'm sure they said this to you, that they felt that you had always been a great solo performer, singer, that your tone and your ability to perform was something that you had wrapped into your production. But they had always, whilst they appreciated your production, absolutely loved you as a vocal performer and as an artist, and could never understand why there had to be more of that. And that's reflected in the film as well. Mimi talks about that, which is like, we were waiting, and you gave an eloquent response about the timing of it and the pressure you felt being successful on your own terms and not with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back on that now, what else was driving that decision, do you think, internally, psychologically for you, to not hear yourself the way others hear, the way we hear you?
I couldn't hear what I had and what I was because I was distracted by hubris.
Yeah.
And lack of self-awareness. I just didn't know. I was driven by ego. Now I am driven by gratitude and wherewithal. Not everybody has it. You know, when someone just goes out and says crazy shit, they don't have the wherewithal. Or go out and do something crazy, and you're just like, well, why'd they do that?
I always think it comes from fear. All that stuff comes from fear.
Well, I was definitely afraid at the time, too. I was just like, oh, requires touring. I don't want to do that. This requires a whole bunch of rehearsals. Oh, fuck no. Let me go back to the beats. Was like, rehearsal? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No way. And I mean, and that's because I didn't feel compelled.
Yeah.
You
did us a favor because we were urging you to do it. That's not a good enough reason. You need to want to do it. We all wanted it.
I ain't see it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't driven.
The robots saw it.
They saw a lot of things, man.
I miss them.
The best. Still the best.
I know. And all
as
things
individuals.
happen. I know. And the end is as poetic and beautiful as the beginning.
To that point, you can always press play.
Yeah, but wasn't there something just beautiful about knowing that somewhere out there in the galaxy they were just
cooking up?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I know that I don't wake up every day expecting a Frank Ocean album, but I love the idea that he's cooking.
Oh yeah, you know he's cooking. He stays. Frank stays in the kitchen.
Yeah,
and it's probably the reason why he doesn't serve as much. He really enjoys the
cooking.
Culinary process. Yeah.
Morgan, getting back to the creative side of this documentary from a director's point of view, and getting a chance to kind of take a step back and take a look at something that you've made in collaboration with Lego, and you know it's not just you and your team, and I know it's always collaborative, but there's a lot of, I'm sure you know your editors, you've got your DOP, you've got your people that you work with that help you build these things traditionally. You really had to kind of lean in on Lego, right, and say, look, we got to figure this out.
You know, when Pharrell pitched me this idea, and I said, yeah, I think that's great. But now we have to get Lego to say yes.
Yeah.
And so we met with them, and they could have killed the film right then. But they were one of those yeses. Within 10 minutes, they said, we kind of love this idea. Like, this is weird, but we kind of love it. And they knew that it was going to stretch them in ways they hadn't done before in terms of what we wanted to do with representation, skin tone, hair, all kinds of things. You just said this, Pharrell, that there are 7 new skin tones in the Lego universe because of this film now in the real world. You know, and that was something Pharrell talked about from the beginning, but pushing them, but they knew they needed to be pushed.
Yeah.
And I will say, other than that, they were pretty hands-off about everything, you know. And then making a film like this is a huge endeavor. I mean, we had an animation studio, Pure Imagination, and an animation director, Howard Baker, but then we had people all over the globe making this film for years. And that's what it takes to do this. You know, that process is both so liberating, but also so there's so much responsibility that comes with that, you know, and there was no instruction manual on how to make a film like this.
Yeah.
And I just kept saying, well, the instructions are in the box, you know, just listen to what Pharrell's saying.
Yeah.
You know, that in a way that became a kind of philosophy of, you know, piece by piece. That's how you make a song, but it's how you make a movie.
It definitely speaks to the quality of the end result, because I think with some documentaries you get a feeling that to your point in the beginning of this conversation, there's an unwilling participation going on that ultimately over time it finds its natural resting place and the result's great. But it's always like, oh man, documentary crews here. Oh man, it's almost comes with it's a little bit of a sort of cliched pass you sort of have to play or you have to hand over when you do a doc. Like, oh man, babe, the crew's here. And I was like, oh, here we go. Right. And it switched up really quickly. And I just love how you found a way to lean in like you always do with everything that you do. I can't believe it took Lego to do it. But I'm glad that you can be proud of this film now in the same way you're proud of Timeless or you're proud of LV, the work you do. Or, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It couldn't be that you just were a willing participant.
I needed Morgan and I needed Lego.
Yeah.
For me to ever be interested in such a process. I was never into that. Don't you remember like maybe 6-7 years ago where like all the A-list artists were doing like documentaries?
It got out of control in quarantine because for lots of reasons. I think financially people were struggling, and I think they'd sell a story. And I think there was quite a few docs, if you look back on it now, with best of intentions, that probably would feel a little premature based on other factors.
I was not
feeling it.
No way. Leave me out of it.
Saturation point. Yeah.
Man, no thanks, bro.
Look what you've been able to achieve by doing it. You both brought up the very important point of increasing representation in existing products and existing areas. It's not just about creating new representation. It's like, no. Let's represent now what you've been doing. Let's add. Let's grow up, right? Did you recognize that when you were playing with Lego with your kids, or was it something that really only crossed your mind when you were actually doing the process yourself and realized, hang on, you're not actually built yet, pun very much intended, to represent who I am and what my friends and what my family look like and feel like and have to say?
Oh, no. It's only when we got involved, we just knew that we were going to have to make some changes and make some, and to grow some of these categories. But that's, that wasn't a political thing as much as it was just like, look, we wanted, like, this is a really universal opportunity. No pun intended to Universal Pictures. But, it's a universal opportunity. So let's make sure that we're meeting, IP-wise, right? Let's make sure we're meeting the consumers in the intersection of where they are. There's lots of there's millions and millions and millions of hands that put these pieces together, and they don't all look the same. And again, inclusivity is very beautiful, and diversity is beautiful, and equity is beautiful. It's just that those things get weaponized all the time. You're woke. And I'm like, you're self-aware. Would you not want someone else to be self-aware? It's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
But in a world where there's so much divisiveness, something being universal is necessary. We need more universal tools out there in the world, and we feel like this is one of those ones. It's like no matter whether you're 8 or you're 80 years old, like it's never too late to like start building your dream piece by piece. Literally, like, now really is such a better word than never.
There was a moment in the film which threw me for a loop. I know a lot about my favorite musicians. It's my lifelong passion. And I was watching a scene involving Missy Elliott, and I had to look at my wife who I watched the film with, and I was like, fuck me, I did not know that. And you know how relieved I was to find out that it was a creative liberty and it didn't actually occur, which is the bit about Missy in the lunchroom playing with everybody. And once I realized after the fact that was an embellishment, I actually loved it even more, because I realized that you weren't being restricted by on a factual basis only. That if you can go and create something visually that can make you do 55 backflips on a skateboard, why can't we embellish the story a little bit more just to make it even stickier and even more compelling? As a documentary maker, though, how did that feel at the time? Because most of the time you've had to stick to the program.
Yeah, but to me, it's the deeper truth, and this is a new type of film. It's whatever. It's a creative nonfiction, and, but the truth of it is that you knew Missy in high school.
Yeah.
She didn't go to your high school. She went to
Right.
another high school.
Right.
You knew Timbaland and you
Yeah.
knew all those guys. And you did make music with them.
Yeah, it's an animated exaggeration.
Yeah, so we just happened to see
it
them
has a
in the
catchphrase
same
now.
room.
I love it. Let's open the door to the
You know.
era of animated exaggeration through a
Whoa.
fictional, factual basis. I love
Well,
it.
I mean, as
Whoa.
opposed to animated reality. You know?
Yeah,
totally, totally.
But
That's
we
what
were
it should
in,
be.
We
Yeah.
were in school in Virginia,
Yeah.
and it was that part is definitely real. But I think in his effort to homogenize different moments so that it would make the story cohesive and really palatable to everybody, I gave him all the I gave him
Freedoms,
all
yeah.
the autonomy to
Yeah.
do what he needed to do, even including like using songs to sort of help tell the story in ways that the songs were not originally written and purposed. Like he's just brilliant with the
is
way you
brilliant.
think about things, and that's the thing. But upon further reflection, when I really think about it, everything was objectified, and that's usually a word that like is usually seen as like has a heavier connotation, is not always fair to at least starting with our women, the female species, that objectification. But here in this sense, we use objectification to bring about universality in a way that like helps to tell a black man, a person from a marginalized community living in public housing on a federal subsidy, to make that feel more universal and not poverty porn. Because when you see the projects from the outside, you're like, wow, that's hard. Yeah, whoa, what is that like? And then when you're on the inside and you're really living there, you realize that you're living in a world where it's very magical. That's not very easy to communicate in a documentary. I can say how fun it is, but you see what it really looked like. You see the broken glass on the street, like, man, that's what you walking on every day? But man, there was still joy. And doing it through the guise of Lego, it objectified the components and all the details so that it didn't feel heavy when it didn't need to feel heavy. It felt emotional when you needed it to feel emotional. I'm very grateful to the animation house. I'm very grateful to Morgan and, the way that he decided to sew this story together. It gave enough objectivity and objectification for me to be inspired to like make the music. Because like I said, otherwise I would be like looking in a recorded mirror. I can't be inspired by that. It's like, for me, I'm seeing myself. It's like a mirror being turned on itself.
It's too much of a pat on the back. It's too like, hey man, look at everything you've achieved in your life. Congratulations, it's in Lego. Awesome. It's like, it's not enough.
What's that song sound like?
Exactly. And you said something really great before, Morgan, as well, when you said like what is it going to be? Animated reality? Like, what is that? And that's what I thought going into it that it would be. I thought it would be a unique twist on a timeless format, and it's not. That's why I love what you did with Missy there, because I feel like the point is me in a way. The point is how I feel at the end of it, not how I feel about Pharrell. That's really what I took away from it. I was like inspired in my own life.
Yes.
As opposed to going, well done. I always knew he was great. Pharrell, everybody, he's great. Documentary proves it. You know what I mean? Like, we all know he's great. It's another gift.
Thank you so much, man. This is exactly what we wanted out of it. We wanted people to walk away thinking about themselves and feeling
100%.
changed and feeling like they could do anything. And like I said, now is a better word than ever.
Now's a better word
right
than
now,
ever.
go. What's stopping you? They're going to try to put you in a box. It's what they do. And by the way, at some point in your life, when you transition to, the afterlife, they will put you in a box.
Not
right?
me, mate. They'll sprinkle me over the ocean, but I know what you mean.
Well, yeah, okay, there you go. But either way, yes, sprinkle your pieces over the Lego ocean when you go.
Yeah.
But until then, man, live life to the
boxes.
fullest.
No boxes.
Nah, man.
A big part of the inspiration that I took away from this was the importance of friendship. I love how that story is told throughout. I love the early part of the film, the way that it's just the three of you just skating and riding around the boardwalk, making it up, skipping school.
Yeah.
This is the shit that as we get older and mature in our lives, we forget that is the dream.
Yeah.
The dream is that you find a room that you can skip school to, go and play music in and be naive. That is the dream.
Yeah.
Is it subconscious or conscious now that you're able to hold on to that naivete? Because when I hear your music now, I feel like you're that guy again. Do you know what I mean? I feel like you're tapping into that guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how at our age, we're the same age,
Yeah.
how you're able to how you're able to continue to sort of go back to that room over the garage.
You never lose your curiosity. I don't care who you are. You never lose your curiosity. Complacency kicks in when your distractions get louder than your curiosity. When you kill all the distractions, your curiosity is blaring. And you just find yourself asking questions. And you find yourself creating thought experiments. You find yourself enraptured by investigation. And if you have the skill set and you know how to transmit what the universe is sending you in terms of answers to these curiosities, and you have the ability to make that music that is, no pun intended, timeless.
I love that. I love what you said about distraction being louder than curiosity. I think that's the most beautiful and succinct way to describe the tempering of one's creative energy I think I've ever heard. It's very true.
100%.
It definitely speaks to me, and I know it speaks to people I know too.
Yeah.
This concept of
Synesthesia.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's a tough one.
I've never mastered it, and I'm all right with words, you know.
Yeah.
I would like to try to get inside it a little more than I ever have before. I would like to understand it a little more than I ever have before.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it. I'm in a healthy and beautiful way kind of envious of it. It's the kind of thing I wish I felt or saw or experienced.
It's not always the best thing in the world, though.
But this is why I wanted to ask you about what the experience is truly like, and this is a perfect time to do it because it's so beautifully embellished through this film, through the color palette and the explosive nature of Lego expanding and contracting in this film. So I just wanted more of a sort of take in the human world on what it is to experience it.
When we're born, all of our nerve endings to all of our senses and submodalities are connected. When we turn one, they prune. Your sight, your sound, your smell, your taste, your feeling. There's also a sixth sense too.
Which is?
Intuition.
Intuition, yeah. Just want to double check.
And sometimes we have side effects of like retrocognition, precognition, and there's all these other things that people have, right? But that's not synesthesia. Synesthesia is when like you turn one, not all the senses prune. So the ones that are still together send ghost image information to each other, to those parts of the brain. So mine is like visual and audio. So when I hear something, it's also triggering how my mind would express itself when it gets information and sends it electrically through the neural pathways. So whichever way it speaks the vernacular, the portion of your brain that receives information from your ears is also receiving sight information. And so your brain is processing both. And so you're sending ghost images to each side. But it's not always pleasant because there are people who have synesthesia and they have it with sight and taste. And they see purple, but they're not tasting grape. They might taste rust. It's not always like this quote unquote gifted thing. Creative, it's just that people who have it, you learn to take some of that information and your brain sort of, because it's all your brain has ever known, now you process information a different kind of way. And I don't know if I could make music if I didn't see the colors, because that's how it helps me map it out and how I like sort of get around schematically. But first of all, it's not as rare as people think. There's a lot of people with it. And when there are graphic synesthetes too. So people with like words and numbers and characters, you'll know them because most people just see them as geniuses and they're quirky, but they're genius. But if you ask them why they can recite a 26 digit number, is because if you really ask the right forensic questions, because they'll just tell you, oh, I'm just like that. I always was good with numbers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you got to ask them forensic questions, very specific questions. And only then will it come out that like when they see the number 2, it's burgundy, and 9 is yellow, but it tilts to the side, and 3 is oversized, and 1 is upside down. That's why they're able to keep up with those things.
Because it objectifies it.
100%. There are brilliant musicians that don't have synesthesia. But for the ones that do have it, oh, you're so creative and you're so da-da-da-da-da. No, we have this condition. It's really a kind of like a defect vibe. But we've learned to live with it, and we've made lemonade from our lemons. That's literally what that is. And so whenever you're hearing something, like, you know, your brain conjures these images of something, and that's what helps you see it for what it is. And you always see that every time you hear it. And it's subjective. Not everybody hears the same chords and see the same colors. It's just whatever way you learned it when you were little, whatever colors were around during that time when you heard it, that's what you see.
Thank you so much for thoughtfully elaborating on that. I learned so much just from that answer about something which is kind of, to your point, is celebrated for the lack of knowledge as being this kind of almost superpower that certain creative people have, but it's so much deeper than that and crosses so many other spectrums of life. So I really appreciate you elaborating on that.
Just one quick thing, you know, as somebody working on an animated movie, it was a total gift for us because, I mean, not only was it a way for us to visualize something that Pharrell was seeing, but you know, we have these physical representations of beats, and we would show you beats and say, are these the colors of this song? And I could go through, and we did on a lot of songs, I would go through songs and ask you the colors of each song, and you always had answers for it, which is so interesting that he still remembers the color of every song he's made. You know, and so that became something we could then make in Lego, you know, which is incredible.
Well, that's what made me want to ask the question, is because after watching the documentary, I was so much more curious about it because I saw it. I've never seen anyone try to do it through a film, through a natural lighting or an artificial lighting way. Somehow through the Lego experience, I got used to it. When the beats would present themselves in those different colors, I was like, oh, cool. It was a language I started to understand more through the film. And I think it was really good it just piqued my curiosity on it.
And I should give one quick shout out that we actually brought in an animator, a kind of a legendary animator, Michelle Gagne, who had worked on Ratatouille.
That's right, had done
and
this
done
before,
some
yeah.
synesthesia, who kind of said, I've done it. And they said, but have you done it in Lego? And trying to figure out how to represent synesthesia.
By the way,
Lego.
doesn't that just make you realize that you want to work with that person even more when they say, I've already done it? You're like, then you're in the right room.
Yeah, which is amazing.
One of the things that really landed for me in this film, as I said, extending from what we were talking about with friendship, is how much we all we fell in love with you and the boys. We fell in love with the crew. We fell in love with the common goal, with the imagery, with the feeling that you all presented. It was more than than each individual. It was the sum of all parts. And I know that there's actually an unresolved ending right now beyond this documentary in regards to the legacy of Neptunes and NERD, which is private. But I wonder, looking back on this film, watching this film back, because this has been a long time in the making, Chad is in the film.
Of course.
And he had to be, but right now it's not good.
Oh, it's great.
It's different.
Exactly.
It's different.
We all evolve and we all move forward.
And I've thought about it. Has watching the film, did it allow you the space to really even further acknowledge that it's okay, it's different, it's okay. It's not what it was, it's something different, because you're telling a different story in the documentary to the one that you're in right now. And as fans and friends, we're invested in all of it, but we love that too. We always have. So I just wonder whether it kind of made you feel a different way looking back on the documentary now that it was kind of made at a different time in terms of the legacy of that relationship.
I will always love Chad. And I will always be grateful for the time that we made music together. Always. Nothing will change that. And I will always wish him the absolute best. Nothing will change that. There's nothing that he or anyone else could do to ever make me feel differently about what we did together and what I wish for him. Nothing.
Yeah, it's an amazing friendship story, this film. It's so unlikely. All of it from the beginning. And the great ones always are. As someone who probably doesn't reflect on your achievements, if ever, and did the best you could to try to make something with an incredible director that allowed you the space to not have to do that, where does it find you now? Where does through Lego or otherwise, kind of closing the loop on one aspect of your life, which is what any kind of story does, a good one, where does it leave you now in terms of space, freedom, sense of like completion, any of those things? Do they resonate with you now that you've gone through this process?
I can't believe God has given me so many opportunities. I can't believe it. There's so many people who wish that they could have the success of one song, wish that they could go into a studio, wish that they could learn to use their gifts, wish that they could acknowledge that they had a gift. There's so many things that I am just so honored and can't believe, and I'm just so grateful. You know, when I use the words grateful and humbled and privileged and honored, I say those things so much that I don't know if people can feel it from me anymore. That the definition of those words don't measure up to what I mean when I say those things. I can't believe I still get to do this. I can't believe it. And this guy said yes, man. We're like sitting here. I'm like talking to my brother right now. I've known you for years. You've seen my ups, my downs, my lefts, my rights. The idea that I just get to do what I love to do. You know, I'm not like really an interview person. I'm not one of those people that's like out there, you know, pushing sides on people and telling you got to take a side on this and you got to do that. Man, I don't bother anybody. I mind my business, and I love being creative, and the idea that I get to do it, it blows my mind. And I'm also honored to serve, you know, talk about the importance of education, talk about the importance of supporting Black and brown ideas, having 501c3s in both respective areas. Just the idea that I get to do any of this, man. And my kids get to see this. You know, my children get to see their dad tell his story, or at least half of it. You know, so I'm 51.
Halfway through.
Yeah, halfway through. If it's going to be 100, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be, but whatever it is, man, I just can't believe that the universe is, that this was written. It's wild.
The theme throughout this, the through line of this story is that you were destined to achieve unique and wonderful things, and we hope that for everybody. But somehow you allowed it to happen. You got out of God's way. You just let it go, especially at that point in your life when you realized that self-awareness was key.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really valuable lesson there, which is that like it's sort of this beautiful combination of no control.
Yeah.
It's kind of both.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the illusion feeds the reality, and the reality allows the illusion. And I think those two things are kind of where it's at.
Yes. Listen, what the universe has for you, no man, situation, or thing can stop it. not even your own ego. And the people who suffer the most are the ones that are like relentless and just...
It will have the opposite effect. It'll actually,
Yeah, when your ego, like I said, egotistical distractions get super loud. You know, when you just can't hear that. You can't hear that inner voice. You can't hear that curiosity because it's not loud. I did say curiosity is blaring loud, but that inner voice of self-awareness is not loud.
No, that's a discipline.
You got to quiet down the distractions, man, and just listen.
And that's really where the change comes from, I think. The change comes from on a mass scale, when on a micro scale, we actually feel it ourselves because then we entrust our feelings in others in a more meaningful way. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. And that's what this film really achieves for me.
Thank you.
It's maximum feeling through something that the only other time I felt it was at the bottom of my foot when my kids left it on the carpet, and it did not feel good. Lego traditionally is not a good feeling experience on the body.
Yeah, when you step on one. Yeah, it's not
Fucking
fun.
pick up your Lego, will you please? That's been most of my experience with Lego.
I mean, one thing that many people have said to us is they forget they're watching a Lego movie.
It does completely suspend it. And I forget I'm watching someone else's story in a strange way. It's beautifully created. I'm sure it's going to have a huge impact on how a lot of people who are beautiful creatives think about how they want to present this story. Long may that continue. And thanks for just breaking through once again and giving us something unique. Because you just continue to do it, as do you, Morgan. Different takes on things that just keep pushing it forward. I'm addicted to it, and I'm always looking for new inspiration. You've given us a big one, this one, piece by piece, this incredible film. Watch it, listen to the new songs, relish in it all. Gentlemen, thank you.
Bro, thank you.